There is a vehicle sitting in Toyota dealerships right now that costs more than the median Australian house did in 1980, and the engine underneath that shiny bonnet has been in the real world for barely 5 minutes. People are handing over $170,000 for a reputation that was built by a completely different engine in a completely different era by a company that, and I say this with genuine respect, also managed to put 250,000 defective diesels on Australian roads without telling anybody. So before you sign anything, let me show you what that Toyota money is actually buying you in 2026. Wait you I am, and why I can say this, I've run a country garage for 32 years. In that time, I've had more Toyotas through the workshop than I could ever count, and I'll be straight with you. Most of them earned every bit of that reputation. I'm not here to bury Toyota. I've said it before, and I'll keep saying it because it's true, but I've also got no dealership behind me. No manufacturer sending me cars to borrow for a week and pat on the bonnet. No sponsor whose feelings I need to protect. What I've got is a hoist, a workshop full of vehicles that real Australians actually drive in the real Australian conditions, and 32 years of watching what breaks, what doesn't, and what the bloke at the dealership quietly hopes you never find out. That's the only thing this channel has ever been built on. So when I tell you there is exactly one Toyota four-wheel drive I would put my own money into in 2026, and 3 I'd walk straight past, I need you to understand that's not clickbait, that's just what the hoist tells me. The Toyota myth. Voice? The Toyota reality? Let me tell you about a court case, because this is where the whole conversation has to start. Between 2015 and 2020, Toyota sold around 264,000 Hilux, Prado and Fortuners in this country, all of them fitted with a diesel particulate filter, and the Federal Court of Australia later found that filter was not of acceptable quality. It clogged, it robbed the engine of power, it blew white smoke down the street. Toyota lost the appeal. That case is still not fully settled. Now, 264,000 vehicles from the brand whose entire identity, whose whole reason for existing in this market is that their stuff doesn't break. That is not a small footnote. That is 250,000 Australian families who bought a Toyota specifically because they believed it wouldn't let them down and got let down. I want to be fair here, and I will be, because a fair go runs both ways. The engine underneath was never junk. It was a filter, set up badly, and Toyota eventually extended warranties and fitted manual regeneration buttons. The fix came, but it came after the problem, not before it. A quick word before we go on. Most people spend thousands of dollars repairing cars long before they actually need to. Professional mechanics have known for decades that a handful of simple habits can make almost any vehicle last far longer. And I've gathered 101 of those insider secrets into a book called The Mechanic's Bible. I won't mention it again. If you'd like a copy, the link is in the description. And that matters when you're spending serious money on a vehicle you're trusting with your family. Here's the thing about the Toyota myth. It was earned. Genuinely, legitimately earned by decades of simple, tough, over-engineered vehicles that just refuse to die. I've seen 100 series LandCruisers sail past 500,000 kilometers without the engine ever being cracked open. I've seen Hiluxes that looked like they'd been through a war and still started first crank every single morning. That reputation is real. But a reputation is a record of what happened. It is not a guarantee of what will happen next. And the moment you forget that, the moment you hand over your money on autopilot just because of the badge, that's exactly when any company, even this one, gets to take you for granted. The Toyota faithful are going to light up the comments on that. Good, I'll be down there. How I actually judge a four-wheel drive before I give you the 3 I'd stay away from and the 1 I'd actually buy, let me tell you how I'm making that call. Because if I'm just going off vibes and brand loyalty, I'm no better than the bloke at the dealership. Here's what I actually look at. First, engine simplicity. The oldest trick in engineering is this: keep it simple, keep it tough, and there's almost nothing on it to break. The engines that quietly do 500,000 kilometers all share the same DNA. Iron block, strong crank, injection that isn't strangled by a dozen emissions gadgets all waiting their turn to fail. The more complicated the engine, the more ways it has to go wrong. Second, real-world durability data, not a satisfaction survey, not a forum full of enthusiasts who've owned the car for 11 months, actual long-term fault data. What does it look like at 200,000 kilometers? What does it look like at 350? What do mechanics pull apart and find when they finally crack one open? Third, parts and network. Break down an hour west of Longreach, and the question isn't whether your car is theoretically reliable. The question is whether someone can get a part to you before the wedge tails start circling. Fourth, the cost to own, not just the cost to buy, a vehicle that costs you $45,000 and $20,000 in repairs over 10 years is more expensive than a vehicle that costs you $70,000 and $8,000 in repairs. Do that sum honestly before you sign anything. That's the framework. Now let's use it. The 3 Toyota 4-wheel drives I'd stay away from stay away number 1. The LandCruiser 300 series, brand new. I want to start with the most controversial one first, because this is where I'm going to lose some of you. The 300 series LandCruiser is a genuinely impressive vehicle. I'll say that clearly and mean it. It is comfortable, it is capable, and from the inside it feels like exactly what you'd expect a $170,000 four-wheel drive to feel like. Here's my problem with it. The engine underneath that badge, the twin-turbo V6 petrol, the 3.5 litre, has been in the real world for about 5 years. 5 years? The reputation you're paying for was built by engines that have been proven over decades. The 4.2 litre diesel that went into the 80 and 100 series. The 4.5 litre V8 diesel in the 200 series. Those engines earned their stripes over hundreds of thousands of kilometres, across the Simpson Desert, across the Kimberley, across 40 years of Australian hard use. The engine in the 300 series has not done that yet. It cannot have done that yet. It simply hasn't been out in the world long enough. And nobody on earth, not me, not Toyota, not the bloke who reviews cars for a living from a company car with 5,000 kilometres on it, can tell you with any confidence what a 300 series looks like at 400,000 kilometres, because none of them have been there yet. Here's the other problem, and this one's pure arithmetic. A brand new 300 series loses somewhere around 20 to 25% of its value the moment you drive it off the lot. In the first 3 years, you're looking at depreciation that makes your eyes water. Meanwhile, a well-kept 200 series, a proven engine, a known quantity, a vehicle with actual long-term data behind it, can be had for $60,000 to $80,000, and it's already past the worst of that depreciation curve. You're not paying $170,000 for a better four-wheel drive. You're paying $170,000 to be the person who finds out whether the new engine is as good as the old one. And with respect, that's not a position I'd want to be in with my own money. If the 300 series is still going strong at 350,000 kilometers in 5 or 6 years' time, I'll say so, loudly, right here on this channel. But right now, unproven. And unproven costs 170 grand. Stay away. Number 2. The Hilux diesel 2015 to 2020 1KD engine with the diesel particulate filter. I know. The Hilux. The best-selling vehicle in the entire country, the one your dad had and his dad had, and half the tradies on your street are driving right now. I'm not telling you to never buy a Hilux. The Hilux is a great ute. What I'm telling you is that a specific generation of Hilux diesel has baggage that the internet, the dealership, and your mate at the barbecue are all very keen to gloss over. The 1KD 3-litre diesel, in the generation fitted with the diesel particulate filter, that's roughly 2015 to 2020, is the engine at the centre of the federal court case I mentioned earlier. Clogged filters, power loss, white smoke, and on top of that, the 1KD in various forms had a documented reputation in my trade for injector seat leaks and the occasional cracked piston long before the filter drama even started. Now here's where it gets a bit nuanced, and I'll be precise because precision matters when you're talking about someone's hard-earned money. Not everyone KD is a disaster. Plenty of them have done 250,000 kilometers without drama, but the filter-equipped generation carries a known risk, an unresolved class action, and a resale market that is, and this is the cruel irony, still pricing them as if none of that exists because the badge says Hilux. People are still paying strong money for these vehicles based on reputation alone, and that means you're taking on the risk without getting the discount that risk deserves. If you want a Hilux, and I understand why you want a Hilux, they're good, honest utes, buy the pre-2005 3-litre, the 1KZ, simple, tough, almost no electronics to complicate your life, or buy a well-kept 2.8 from the newer generation with the DPF history checked properly and a receipt trail you can actually trust. But the 2015 to 2021 KD with the filter, bought on reputation alone without doing your homework, that's how good people get caught. Stay away. Number 3. The RAV4 Hybrid, first generation Australian market, 2019 to 2021. Now I can already hear the objections. The RAV4 Hybrid tops satisfaction surveys. The fuel economy is genuinely impressive. They're everywhere. Isn't this just an old mechanic who doesn't understand the future? Maybe, but let me tell you what I actually see. The RAV4 Hybrid arrived in Australia in 2019 to a genuine frenzy. Waiting lists, dealer markups, people paying above sticker just to get one, and I understand it. Toyota hybrid technology in the Camry and the Prius has been proven over a long time. The brand translated well. Here's the problem. The RAV4 Hybrid is not a Prius. It's a heavier, more demanding vehicle, towing corrugated dirt roads, Australian summer heat, in a tin shed for 11 months of the year. And the first generation Australian cars came with software gremlins that Toyota quietly addressed through updates, an EV battery system that we simply do not have long-term Australian climate data on yet, and a resale market so inflated by demand that buyers were and still are paying a Toyota tax on top of a hybrid tax on top of a supply shortage premium. What that means in plain language is this. You are paying a very large amount of money for technology that has not been fully stress tested in Australian conditions over the long haul, in a vehicle that costs significantly more to repair when things do go wrong, because hybrid systems are not something you can sort out at your local independent shop on a Saturday morning. The other thing I'll say, and this is the catch that nobody in the showroom will mention, if that hybrid battery needs replacing outside of warranty, you are looking at a bill that will make the cost of a good set of tyres feel like loose change from the console. The technology is improving every year. In 3 or 4 years, I might be saying something completely different about these vehicles. But right now, in 2026, the first generation RAV4 Hybrid is a vehicle where you're being asked to pay a premium price for technology that is still finding its feet in our conditions. And I'd rather wait until the feet are found before I hand the money over. The one Toyota 4-wheel drive, I'd actually buy right, here it is, the 80 series and the 100 series LandCruiser, the 4.2-litre diesel, either the 1HZ naturally aspirated or the 1HD turbo. And I'm aware that some of you just rolled your eyes so hard you've seen the back of your own skull. Too old, hard to find, expensive to buy for what they are. I've heard it all. Let me tell you why every one of those objections falls apart under about 30 seconds of actual scrutiny. Let's start with the 1HZ. The naturally aspirated 4.2-litre diesel. This engine has mechanical injection. Do you understand what that means in practical terms? It means there are almost no electronics on it to fail, no common rail, no DPF, no turbo to overheat, no intercooler to leak, no complex emission system with a dozen sensors all waiting their turn to give you grief. This is an engine from an era where Toyota's engineers overbuilt everything by a factor of about 3 because they could, and because the Toyota reputation in those days was something they were apparently quite serious about protecting. I have seen 1HZ LandCruisers sail past 500,000 kilometers. I have heard of well-kept examples passing a million kilometers in a single engine. That is not a figure I can say about the 300 series because, as I mentioned earlier, nobody knows what the 300 series looks like at a million kilometers yet because there aren't any. Now, the 1HZ has a catch, and I promised I'd always give you the catch, so here it is. It is slow. Genuinely, actually, no argument slow. Merging onto a freeway in a 1HZ Land Cruiser is an act of faith in the goodwill of other drivers. If you drive mostly on highways and you need to overtake a road train with any kind of urgency, the 1HZ will test your patience in ways you did not know were possible. I say that with affection, but I say it clearly. The other catch, and this one is non-negotiable, is the timing belt. The 1HZ runs a timing belt that must be replaced every 100,000 kilometers. No excuses. No pushing it to 110 because you're busy. No finding out it was last done at 85,000 and deciding that's probably fine. The belt goes, the engine goes with it, and suddenly your bulletproof Land Cruiser is 170 kilogram paperweight. Do the belt, do it on time, do it with a receipt, and the engine will outlast everything else on it twice over. Now, the 1HD Turbo, same basic architecture, same iron block, same bulletproof DNA, but with the turbocharger bolted on, and this changes the character of the vehicle entirely. This is the 1HD I'm talking about in the 100 series particularly. Proper torque, proper highway ability, enough grunt that you're not praying every time a B-double appears in the distance and you need to get past it. The 1HD Turbo is, in my honest opinion, one of the best diesel engines Toyota ever built. Full stop. I've seen them tow caravans across the Nullarbor for years on end. I've seen them go to the back of the Cape and come home without drama. I've seen them opened up at 350,000 kilometers with bores that look like the day they were machined. Here is the thing about the 80 and 100 series that people who've never owned one don't fully grasp. This is the vehicle that built the Toyota reputation, not the 300 series, not the 200 series. The reputation that lets Toyota charge $170,000 for a four-wheel drive today, that reputation was earned by these engines in these chassis on these roads over these decades. And here's the part that genuinely astonishes me every time I think about it. You can buy a well-kept 100 series Land Cruiser right now, proven engine, known quantity, a vehicle with actual documented long-term reliability data behind it, for somewhere between $25,000 and $50,000 depending on age, kilometers, and condition, against $170,000 for a 300 series that is still working out whether the new engine is as tough as the old one. Now, I want to be precise here because the used market has its own traps and I'm not going to let you walk into one. The early 80 series, the pre-1993 vehicles, brilliant engines, but they're getting old enough now that you need a thorough mechanical inspection and you need to know the parts situation intimately before you commit. The 100 series, roughly 1998 to 2007, is the sweet spot of this whole conversation. Young enough that parts are still solid, old enough that the long-term data exists and it is very, very good. This is the one I'd be looking for if someone put a gun to my head and said, choose. The 1KD Prado, same 3-litre diesel that's in the Hilux conversation above, exists in this era too, so be precise about what engine you're buying. The 1KD without the filter, the pre-2015 Prado, is a different proposition to the filter-equipped one. Know the engine code, say it out loud before you hand the money over. And one more thing, because this is important and I see people get it wrong constantly, the 80 and 100 series Land Cruiser in Australia attracts two completely different kinds of sellers. The first kind is the touring community, people who have genuinely loved and looked after these vehicles, serviced them religiously, know their history intimately, and are selling because they're upgrading or downsizing, or the knees aren't what they were. Buy from this person if you can find them. The vehicle will almost always be what it appears to be. The second kind is the person who bought one cheaply because it looked tough, did absolutely nothing to it for 3 years, drove it into the ground a bit, and is now selling it as a legendary Land Cruiser because the badge does the work for them. These vehicles are everywhere, and the badge makes them look exactly the same as the well-kept ones until you get it on a hoist. The badge is not the guarantee, the service history is the guarantee. I'll come back to that. What to look for when buying one, right? So you've decided you want an 80 or 100 series? Good. Here is how you don't get burned. First thing, service history. Not just the logbook, actual receipts from actual workshops. The logbook on its own tells you nothing because any person with a pen can fill in a logbook. What you want are invoices with dates, odometer readings, and the name of the shop that did the work. If the seller can't produce those, that's not a red flag, and that's a goodbye. Second thing, the timing belt. Ask specifically when it was last done and demand the receipt. If they don't know, or if the answer is a version of, I think it was done a while back, budget for a belt job immediately and price that into your offer. This is not a negotiating tactic. This is a safety requirement. A snapped belt on a 1H seat is a bent valve situation, and a bent valve situation is an engine rebuild. Third thing, get it on a hoist. Not a quick look underneath in a car park, on a proper hoist with a mechanic who knows what they're looking at. You're checking for rust on the chassis rails, particularly around the rear spring hangers and the cross members, and you're checking the condition of the front diff, the transfer case seals, and the condition of the constant velocity boots. These are the things that tell you how the vehicle has been treated off-road. Fourth thing, the cooling system. The 1HZ in particular runs warm if the cooling system isn't maintained properly. Look at the color of the coolant. Look at the condition of the hoses, and look for any sign of white residue around the filler cap or the overflow bottle. That can indicate a head gasket starting to let go. And on a vehicle this age, that's not necessarily a death sentence, but it is a negotiating point, and it is something you need to know about before you buy. Fifth thing, take it for a proper drive. Not around the block, 30 minutes minimum, highway speeds, and if there's any corrugated dirt within reach, use it. The 1HD Turbo should pull cleanly through the whole rev range with no smoke on hard acceleration. A puff of smoke on startup is normal. Smoke under load is a conversation to have with a diesel specialist before you proceed. The sixth thing, and this is the one most people skip because they feel awkward asking it, ask the seller why they're selling. You're not being rude, you're being sensible. The answer will tell you a lot about the vehicle and a lot about the person you're dealing with. A good seller will have a clear, calm answer. A seller with something to hide will usually give you one that changes slightly every time you ask it. I've been doing this for 32 years, you can tell. And the last thing, if the price seems too good to be true for one of these, it usually is. The 80 and 100 series market in Australia is full of people who know exactly what these vehicles are worth. A suspiciously cheap one is cheap for a reason. Find the reason before you find out the hard way. The fare. Go for Toyota. Now, before the comments fill up with people saying, I've lost the plot, let me give Toyota its due, because a fair go runs both ways, and I'd be lying to you if I didn't. Toyota still wins 3 things in 2026 that genuinely matter and are not small. 1. Resale. Nothing on earth holds its money like a Toyota. The Land Cruiser, the Hilux, the Prado, these vehicles return more of your purchase price when you sell than almost anything else on the market. And when you do that maths honestly over a 5-year period, sometimes the dearer Toyota is actually the cheaper vehicle to own because of what you get back at the end. You have to do that sum before you sign, not after. 2. The parts and dealer network. I've said this before and I'll keep saying it. Break down 1,000 kilometers from the nearest city, and the question isn't whether your car has a good reputation. The question is whether someone can get a part to it. Toyota can. That network is a genuine reliability feature when you're remote, and it's something that orphan brands and brand new arrivals genuinely cannot match yet. 3. For the right use case, the new vehicles are legitimate. If you are crossing the Simpson Solo, towing 3.5 tons, and you need the coverage of a 7-year factory warranty and a national dealer network on call, buy the new Cruiser. Do not think twice. You are paying for peace of mind in a situation where peace of mind is worth every cent. What I'm pushing back on is not Toyota. I'm pushing back on the autopilot. The assumption that the badge is a force field, the idea that you don't need to check the engine code, read the service history, understand which generation you're buying, or think about what the vehicle has actually been through. The 80 and 100 series Land Cruiser at the top of my list is itself a Toyota. The badge that built that reputation is the same badge. I just want you buying the one that earned it, not the one that's borrowing it. So there it is. 3 Toyota, 4-wheel drives I'd stay away from in 2026. The 300 series new off the lot. Unproven engine at a proven price. The 2015 to 2020 Hilux 1KD with the filter. A known generation of known risk that the market still hasn't priced honestly, and the first generation RAV4 hybrid, promising technology that hasn't finished earning its Australian credentials yet. And the one I'd actually buy, the 80 or 100 series Land Cruiser, the one HZ or the one HD Turbo, the engine that built the whole legend in the first place, sitting in a proven chassis, available right now for a fraction of what people are paying for the new one. Buy the track record, not the badge, not the brochure, the actual documented, mechanic verified, hoist inspected, receipt producing track record. Now I want to hear from you, because you lot always know things I don't. Do you own an 80 or 100 series? How many kilometers has it done? And what's it cost you to keep on the road? And if you think I've got the 300 series wrong, which some of you will, tell me why in the comments. Make your case. I read them all, and I'll argue with a few of you. That's it from Broken Australia. Buy the one that gets you home.